We may have just witnessed the biggest upset in all of CS2 history, and I'm not talking about a single match either, I'm talking about a whole entire tournament run. Now, to really understand just how insane this upset was, you have to understand what Falcons wanted when building this team, because they are nothing like other esports teams. They are an org who basically have infinite money to buy the best players in the whole entire world, and they do not hide that. They themselves have made it very clear that they are building their roster to specifically win majors, and they've gone to insane lengths to find a winning team. Originally, they bought out the ends core of Snappy, Sampius, and Maiden, and put them alongside 4 and 5-time major winners in Dupree and Magisk. But when that didn't work, they got rid of Sampius and somehow got Simple to play with them on trial, and when that also didn't work, they just got rid of everyone except for Magisk and then waited patiently to buy out the next up-and-coming team, which ended up being Heroic with Kixen, Tessus, and Degster. Now, you might be wondering, why did they only buy the 3-player core of Heroic instead of the whole entire roster? Well, that's because a few days later, they bought out the best rifler in Counter-Strike history for $1.2 million. But again, they didn't get the results they wanted, so they kicked Degster and then bought Monacy for $2.5 million. They now have 2 generational superstars on their team, a 4-time major winner, and 2 pretty solid up-and-coming players, which finally allows them to start making deep tournament runs. In fact, they won PGL Bucharest and were becoming so good that most people prior to this major thought that they were the only team that had the potential to beat Vitality. So this just makes what happened to Falcons at the major even more unbelievable. It all started on June 7th when they played their first match against Bait, an up-and-coming Ukrainian team who were playing their first ever major. However, since Falcons were automatically in Stage 2 of the major, this was their first game, whereas Bait had to play through Stage 1. And in Stage 1, they actually went 3-0, so with this match being a best of 1 on top of Bait's surprisingly good start, people gave them a small chance to beat Falcons, but still, they were widely regarded as the favorites. But as you could probably guess, they lost and people started coping, myself included, because it was their first match and one of their star players was having an off game. So although this was an upset, there was still some hope at this point in time. Going into their second match though, everyone thought Falcons was going to win easily as they were facing Lynn Vision, who had a much more shaky start as they went 3-2 in Stage 1 and got absolutely stomped by Furia during Stage 2. And considering Furia had generally been ranked much lower than Falcons coming into this match, it was a general consensus that Falcons was going to win this match. But quite the opposite happened as Lynn Vision beat them 13-9 on Nuke. Another generational upset, and now they were one loss away from being fully eliminated from the major without a singular map win. However, we saw a tiny glimmer of hope as they went into their third match against OG, since it was the first best of 3 that Falcons could play. And let's just say thank God it was, because they lost the first map 13-11 after going up in the half 9-3, and also letting Nikodos win a 1v3 to secure the map. So although they had another chance, Falcons were honestly crumbling. To throw the amount of leads and man advantages against teams that prior to this tournament would have never even been in the conversation to beat them was beyond concerning. But before anyone could fully write them off, Falcons did win the second map at 13-10. But still, this was not a comfortable map. There were so many moments that could have swung the map in favor of OG. The same can't be said about Mirage though, as Falcons beat them 13-6, meaning they were finally doing as expected. Honestly, the fact that OG even got a map off of them was still somewhat of an upset in many people's eyes. But hey, the last map was good, so maybe it just took Falcons 3 whole series to finally wake up. Now, the reason I'm kind of skimming over these games is honestly because they were so boring in the sense that the players you would expect to pop off weren't putting up any numbers. And throughout all of these matches, Falcons just looked like they had a very shallow strat pool. This video is sponsored by skinvault.gg, which is the best trading site that makes upgrading your skins as easy as possible. Literally all you have to do is sign into your Steam account, add your trade link, and then select all the skins you don't want anymore to get a brand new one from their huge catalog of skins. They also offer an instant selling feature for people who want a quick, easy, and safe way to cash out their inventories with the lowest possible fees on the whole entire market. So make sure to use code nilloc to receive a free $10 bonus on your first trade, as well as a 35% deposit bonus. Skinvault is unironically the best. But going into their next match, that would completely change, except not in their favor. Unlike every other game Falcons had played up until this point, their match versus MIBR was about to be legendary. The first map, however, went as expected, with Falcons winning 13-6, which was another clean game from them, so all things considered, people were starting to think Falcons was returning to their expected form. But then came Nuke, and MIBR started hot as they went up 4-0 in the first few rounds. But we all know the map is heavily CT-sided, so a bad T-side isn't usually the end of the world, but when the halftime score is 10-2 in favor of MIBR, it's not a good sign. So when Falcons lost a 1v2 during pistol round, we all knew it was chalked. All things considered though, they were able to claw back 7 rounds on the CT side, however it was pointless as MIBR closed it out 13-9 a few rounds later. This was becoming a hyper-competitive game, but let's be honest, it shouldn't be. In the last 3 Tier 1 events, MIBR haven't placed higher than top 8, with the majority of their placements being even lower than that. While Falcons were the runner-up in the last 3 that they played, plus they literally won PGL Bucharest a few months ago, so this sudden drop-off in performance was unprecedented. Luckily for them, they still had one more map to potentially redeem themselves, and of course, it was everyone's favorite map, Inferno. The map started pretty interestingly as MIBR won the first pistol, but then proceeded to lose the following 3 rounds, but then flipped the narrative and won 4 in a row themselves after realizing A site was Falcons' weakness. So with the scoreline being 4-5, they try to abuse the A site once again, but finally get shut down, leaving Insani in a 1v3. And I think you can guess how that goes. After some other heroics from MIBR, the half ended at 8-4, and in all honesty, this half should have been so much closer. But Falcons were playing so scared on the CT side that it allowed MIBR to have so much space to do whatever they wanted. Going into the second half, Falcons had only won 1 pistol round throughout the whole entire series, so the fact that they lost this one wasn't really a surprise. What was a surprise though was the fact that Falcons managed to actually string together 6 rounds in a row, and during this streak, MIBR could have stopped their momentum at 10-7. But somehow Magix went insane and saved them the round. Then we find ourselves at 11-11. Falcons have the B site in a 3v2. This was their best chance to finally take the lead. But then Kixan throws a Molotov to stop anyone rotating in through church. But what he doesn't know is that there's a tiny gap that allows Burnison to walk through undetected and get 2 free kills, winning them the round. And just like that, Falcons are 1 round away from being fully eliminated. But they do manage to tie it up and go to overtime, and OT goes as expected as they trade rounds back and forth until we eventually hit double overtime, which continues this back and forth until 18-17, where Falcons look like they have finally broken through to win this map. It's an unlosable 3v5. On one of the hardest bomb sites to retake, Monesi and Tessis are holding Banana, and 3 people from all different angles are holding the site. But then Monesi gets off his angle and trades places with Tessis, and for some reason he swings Banana with an AK and loses his duel. Then Monesi whiffs an op shot and loses his duel. And now since they've given MIBR all of Banana, they can coordinate a retake from multiple angles, which makes Falcons crumble as they all die without trading a singular kill. This round alone could be considered one of the biggest chokes in Counter-Strike history. But it just gets worse because after this, MIBR start running away with the game and end up beating Falcons 22-20.
We expected the Falcons to take flight. Instead, their ticket is booked by MIBR. A flight home instead.
Out of the 4 matches they played, 3 of them were major upsets, and all of them contributed to the fact that they were eliminated before even reaching playoffs, which was something that almost everyone thought was a guarantee. And I mean, prior to this, they were supposed to be the team that defeated the best in the world, so to see them crumble this badly is why I truly believe this is the biggest upset in CS2's history.